feel wonderful. I feel so much better than I did. Yes, clap! You 2 or 3 people who work for me. Keep clapping! I'll fire all of you. Happy Thursday. Spit on myself. Wow, today is a big day for CNN. No. The age of consent didn't just get lowered. Yeah. Just let that soothe into your brain. It's the 1-year anniversary of January 6th, or as they see it, Pearl Harbor meets 9/11 with a Watergate shooter. Yeah, it's worse than the worst thing ever. And of course, they're the heroes. So why commemorate it if it's so bad? Well, first, it's easy. It's just one day, right? I mean, try commemorating the riots after George Floyd or Jacob Blake or the burning down of various cities. And don't forget the violent melees after Trump won in 2016. You'd have to hold a commemoration every single day. It'd be like combining Groundhog Day with Rodney King. But don't hold your breath. Well, unless you're in an elevator with Eric Swalwell. We'll get to him later. So instead of acknowledging the many of the dead caused by those relentless media-approved riots of 2019 and onward, the press chooses to amp up one day of rioting, one they falsely call an insurrection, since no one's been charged with insurrecting anything. Hell, more people died at that Travis Scott show. And worse, they salute online narcs who helped get people arrested for wandering around that day, even after some Capitol Police held the doors open for them. Yeah, our government deputized a nation of Stasi Karens under the lying guise of sedition to ruin people's lives. And if you don't play the media's game, they will say you're playing the event down. Screw them, they're lying. It's the only thing they're good at. As we've said before about January 6th, it's a riot, and riots are bad. That's what makes us good people here at Fox. We view all violence as unseemly. Well, unless it involves a safe word. That reminds me, Bill Hemmer, I need my leather mask back. But the legacy media is just faking outrage to hide their own pro-violence stance, which is like Stelter trying to hide behind a flagpole. See, to them, crime and death are just political weapons, the kind that can be hidden when necessary to win an election, and then one to play up in order to not lose an election. Let's not forget how the media manipulated the riots and the crime wave for political favor.
This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly, but fires have been started.
They're going to take your country away, and they're taking down the statues. And
crime is rising as they defund police.
Oh, my gosh, it's so bad.
When you listen to conservative media, you would think that, entire cities are just, embroiled in fights and fires and whatever. We went out and had a great dinner in New York City tonight. People actually walked up to us and said, thank you I watch you every night.
That is so not true. No one watches you every night. Still like a Twinkie, that clip never gets old. But here's the media now.
January 6th represents an ongoing threat to our democracy.
What we saw a year ago today is something they see as a continuing, clear and present danger to this country.
Vice President Harris invoking the phrasing of the dates that will live in infamy: Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and now January 6th.
Kamala's stupidity will live in infamy. And of course, there's Joe Biden, who, as left-wing run cities burned and people died, chained himself to a basement radiator like he was a Lincoln Project intern. It wasn't until consultants told him that all this leftist violence could help Trump win that he spoke up. Barely. And yet here he is again faking concern because it takes the heat off his disastrous presidency and puts it on Trump.
We must decide, what kind of nation are we going to be? Are we going to be a nation that accepts political violence as a norm? Are we going to be a nation where we allow partisan election officials to overturn the legally expressed will of the people? Are we going to be a nation that lives not by the light of the truth, but in the shadow of lies? For the first time in our history, a president had not just lost an election, he tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power as a violent mob breached the Capitol. Former president who lies about this election and the mob that attacked this Capitol could not be further away from the core American values.
Doesn't sound like he wants to move on. The problem is the American people see through this like a peephole in a CNN bathroom stall. We aren't fooled by the media's orgy of sanctimony. They only cared about January 6th to falsely smear millions of people who didn't vote for Joe while helping their own dying networks. Fact is, they need Trump like our president needs Metamucil. And more Trump content helps boost ratings that are limper than Kevin Spacey thumbing through a Victoria's Secret catalog. CNN is going all in, and you can't blame them. Consider the mess they're in. A network that spent more time last year covering their ass than the news and 0 time covering up Jeffrey Toobin's wiener. You got multiple anchors accused of sexual harassment. Their only star anchor fired in disgrace. Producers either arrested or implicated in deviant sex crimes that would make Jeffrey Epstein want to fly commercial. Yeah, no wonder they couldn't cover that story either. It hit too close to home, I guess. So gas bags like Stelter gorge on January 6th like it was an eclair found in a trash can rather than the perversion exploding around him. Anything to distract. And they've been wrong so many times on so many things that they need January 6th more than Alec Baldwin needs an NRA instructor. It's really about shelf space. The libs got nothing to sell. Biden's horrendous performance is creating a kink in the supply chain for other news stories. All they have left is doom and gloom, inflation, crime, COVID, the border. That's all they have to fill their shelves. Is it any wonder that all of this is every bit as coordinated as their efforts to beat Trump, which Time magazine boasted about, or openly punishing anyone who dare bring up Hunter Biden's laptop? And what coordination it is. You got the New Republic, USA Today, the AP, the Daily Beast, the LA Times, the Hollywood Reporter. And what do they have in common? Other than being covered in parrot by the end of the day. They're media interviewing other media, forming a media human centipede, feeding on its own waste, high on its own fumes. What's that tell you? That nothing ever happens in life until it happens to the media. Crime didn't exist, you see, until one day in January put the media and their idols on center stage. What's next? Is the cast of Hamilton gonna pop by to commemorate the day?
We're privileged to have a contribution from one of the great creative talents of our time, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
A new year brings hope for the future, new energy to face the tasks ahead of us, and a renewed promise to strengthen the foundations of our democracy.
Someday, yeah, you'll blow us all away. Someday.
I was just joking. But yeah, it turns out they did get the cast of Hamilton. This is so Ooh, wow. So suddenly, according to the media, the world's in danger because they were in danger, when in fact the only person who was murdered was an unarmed woman who our brave media dare not mention ever. Yeah, they finally found a dead, unarmed female protester they didn't give a about. Meanwhile, their lives were in about as much danger as the day when Brian Williams was in his 3rd tour on Vietnam. But before that, when neighborhoods were destroyed, businesses plundered, innocent people terrorized, to the media, that was as alien as an episode of Star Trek. Because they, the media, wasn't the center of that universe. January 6th, though, is their story, as opposed to the riots, crime waves, you're suffering. So for nearly 2 years, they pretended everything was great. But then January 6th happens, and suddenly there's a threat to our fragile democracy. Yeah, suddenly they're pro-cop after a decade of painting targets on their backs. So they use this day now to deflect from the devastation they wrought upon this country. It's the one product they can fill their shelves with, and they hope you care. But you see through it like a $3 shower curtain. You know your pain was never the media's concern. Your pain didn't validate their core beliefs. In fact, your pain exposed how their own leftism led to our civil decline. To them, authentic violence had to be buried, unless they could use it against you. You'd be a sucker to fall for this. And it's on every Republican who does. You hear that, Liz? Let's welcome tonight's guest. She's more Southern than a gun that shoots cornbread. Fox Business anchor Dagan McDowell. When this lawyer approaches the bench, it's to knock out a set of 15 presses. Former acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. He's done more headshots than a yearbook photographer. The most reliable SEAL since Tupperware. Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill. She's like last week's Christmas tree. out in the street after covering your floor with needles. That might be the best one ever. That might be the best one ever. I know it's unfair and wrong, but it's still the best one ever. Fox News contributor Kat Timpf. I swear I wasn't going to do any more drug references for you, Kat.
But now they're just hiding them. Now I'm doing them intravenously.
That was just, whoever wrote that, it made such a good intro, I had to use it. Meanwhile, all of Rob's are about killing people. So, Rob, I haven't seen you in a while. How do you take this idea that we have to accept that this is going to be like a year anniversary?
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, the way they're acting about it now, that January 6th, in order to honor it, we should just plow down the Washington Monument and put up a statue of lawmakers hiding behind desks. That's what happened there. Yeah. I mean, they're so eager, including the Cheney family, to send people like me, men and women, to war. And it's fine. With 13 people dying in one explosion, it didn't need to happen. It's fine until it comes to your house. Right. Now it's an insurrection when the only person that was killed was murdered by one of your cops. If as a range safety officer, range officer in charge, I was a Navy SEAL for 16 years, watching that clown carry that gun, Instagram warriors will yell at me for that crap. Yeah. And he blasted. It was a negligent discharge. Yeah. He shot it into a crowd, hit a woman in the neck, a 14-year Air Force combat veteran, Ashley Babbitt, not a peep.
Exactly.
The only two words that President Biden didn't say today, the only two names he didn't say today were Donald Trump or Ashley Babbitt. The former president didn't mention a woman that got murdered by a cop that shouldn't have been there for 28 years.
Yeah. Rob, I'm so you just get me so pissed. It just gets into my gut when I think about how that woman and how her family, it just rips me up.
And then to hear the story, the nonsense about, they were climbing the wall. We had nowhere to go. You're armed. Look, I wasn't there. You don't storm the Capitol. The mob mentality hits everyone. Believe me, I've been there. And the only time I've ever been arrested, I deserved it. But what I'm saying is, I think I love cops. It wasn't my fault. It was my fault. But I mean, you can tell by the way this dude's bouncing. Not only should he be fired, his instructor should be fired. The first guy that taught him should be fired. It's a shame, and they're politicizing this because this is all they got.
Exactly, Dagan. It's kind of a naked, desperate ploy because they see how bad this is going politically. The American public does not care about an anniversary commemoration. They're not going to be buying any of the coins.
No, I talked to a lot of folks, and January 6th not coming up in conversation. The media love a riot a little too much because, see, last year it was a lot of work and energy to contain their glee, right? Because in one moment it seemed to justify all of the lies, all the orange man bad that they had peddled for more than 4 years, and now they just want to relive that brief moment of glory, that moment in the sun where their ratings were not.
Yes.
It's like they finally got off the bench once in high school and ran a few yards and got to second base with a woman that you didn't have to put a bag over her head. That is the media.
That is a hell of a mixed metaphor.
What?
Yeah, but you're right. I think you're right. I'm trying to follow it, but I believe you hit on an essential truth. Matt, let's talk about this. Another network we won't mention because I already made fun of them. Yep. They've been counting how many times we say insurrection. Do we have to say insurrection if no one's being charged?
Well, and it's not legally an insurrection. If nobody's been charged, and B, if there was no means or manner to ever overturn the government. I mean, we've had 700 people charged. Yes. All of them broke the law and should be prosecuted. Political violence, never appropriate. Right. However, this riot, or whatever you want to call it, mob, was never going to take control of the federal government and all the apparatus therein. The one thing about January 6th we also need to remember as we're doing this on a yearly basis is this is when President Trump was kicked off of the major social media platforms. And that was really as anti-American a move as any mob at the Capitol, because what it did is it demonstrated that social media companies now control speech. And while free speech does not apply to private companies, we need to relook at sort of the power they have to regulate speech, because it's extraordinary.
And also, whenever you silence somebody, it's not like you actually silence them. You just push them underground, and then they find other ways, and then you don't know exactly what they're saying. Kat, you understand that, don't you?
Yes.
You are an insurrectionist.
The thing, that's nice. First you accuse me of doing intravenous drugs, now you accuse me of being an insurrectionist, and I haven't even got a chance to talk.
I know. Last word to you because you're the most important.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow, that was weird. So I think that when Biden says, do we really want to live in a country where this is normal?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we need all this and, the weird Zoom Hamilton thing, which didn't really fit in with the rest of the event. That was great. To not think it's normal, because even on that day, I don't think anybody at all thought it was normal.
Right, exactly.
Like, nobody turned on the TV and saw that and was like, change the channel, boring, just another day. So I think that, when you make pronouncements like that, obviously January 6th was bad. It was crazy, but nobody thinks this was normal.
No.
Like, nobody thinks it was normal. Even the people that were there, that wasn't a normal day for them.
But this is so this is going back to what Rob was talking about the Cheneys and the Kinsingers. They're pretending that we thought it was normal. And
Nobody.
So that elevates them to act like they're the heroic people pointing this out. We're going to be on the committee. No, everybody thought it sucked, but we don't need you guys to be the pawns for the Democrats.
And there's so much going on inside too. There's so much behind the scenes of how this actually got going. If you see a grown man wearing those kind of shorts and an 8-year-old boy's haircut, he's a Fed.
Yes,
he's doing something. He's not.
No, there's a lot of questions, like the pipe bomb.
We can talk about this for hours.
We still don't even know what happened with the pipe bomb. And also, remember the BLM activist that was there next to Ashley Babbitt, and he was on CNN, and they paid him. Do you remember that? It was like, anyway.
Oh, but the Democrats are going to get to the bottom of it on their committee.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.